All right, so TNC had been involved in a whole bunch of different ways up till this point, mostly focused on land and easement acquisitions. Canelo Hills, Patagonia, Sonoyta Creek, Baba Kamari, setting up a suite of easements that have been phased in over the years, mostly using Department of Defense monies. But our first involvement sort of in the management and collaboration at Las Cienegas started in 2004, and both BLM and stakeholders had recognized that the monitoring that was being done might not be focused enough, on, might have sort of some pieces missing that needed to be filled for it to really address some of the questions, management questions that were coming up. So Nature Conservancy was invited to come in and partner and help tailor some of the monitoring to make sure that it covered some of the main indicators that folks were discussing as sort of management trigger points and management indicators. So that was 2004. We helped BLM tailor some, sort of adapt some of the grassland monitoring over the next couple of years. 2006, we got wet-dry monitoring started on the lower portions, BLM portions or upper portions, BLM portions of Cienega Creek. Let's see, a couple of lessons learned from that. First might be actually that the challenge cost share program of federal funding is a super valuable mechanism for sustaining collaboration and partnerships, and for allowing partners to really help fill the federal agencies' management and science needs. Challenge cost share, yay. We can actually share the cost of doing these activities on public land.
So back to 2004 there, and Challenge Cost Share was funding through the Sonoran Institute, Sky Alliance, going out on the ground with volunteers and closing and rehabilitating the roadbed of roads that were identified in the resource management plan as unneeded. And we continued that work for about 3 years.
About the time that Sky Island was doing that, we worked with many people in this room again to do an implementation strategy in 2004 for the resource management plan. So really that 2003-04 era, there's a lot of management that had been going on, but that really kicked in a lot of new activity in terms of implementing projects on Las Cienegas.
Another thing that happened in 2004 was the Chiricahua leopard frog was listed as a threatened species.
Somebody's got blue here. Is that you, Deb? Okay.
Yeah, in 2004, Chiricahua leopard frog was listed, but also in 2005, the Gila chub was listed. More importantly, it was listed with critical habitat. And rightly or wrongly, that brings a greater focus on the habitat. But one of the lessons learned from that is that watersheds matter to aquatic species. Certainly the old paradigm was that, especially even among fish biologists, we protected a piece of water, we put a fence around it, threw fish in or frogs or whatever it was, and it was good. And over time, we have realized that we have to consider more than that. It wasn't a eureka moment, but that helped crystallize it in this area, especially with looking at the frogs and the leopard frogs and the frog shed, as they call it.
Okay, 2005 to 6 is when the Cienega Watershed Partnership was formed.
We're missing a couple down below in the black here. I don't know who put those on.
Well, I had, in 2004, the MAPS bird banding station was established at Las Cienegas and has continued every year since then. I should note that when we first came out to Las Cienegas in '88, so probably starting in '87 or '86, there was another bird banding effort by a number of volunteers associated with the Audubon Society that went until the early 1990s. And then it was not at the same location, but that data is still around and has been, and that now we've got the formal mapping station. And what else did I put? Well, just that these were the era of the reports that came out of the TNC BLM effort. So we had a report on the upland grassland, on biological planning, on riparian areas, and on the Gila top minnow fish. So that's it for me on there.
And I've got some stuff for 2000. I was hired to do herpetological inventory of Cienega Creek on the conservation area. And just briefly, at that time, that was the first time that we really came to the conclusion that the leopard frog population was gone when nobody was looking. They just kind of blinked out. Bullfrogs were common. Mexican garter snakes, which is now a candidate species, was also common still. Then by 2004, that's when top minnow and chub turned up at the county preserve. They came on their own. First time they were ever documented in the lower parts of Cienega Creek. And lessons learned from that was that the habitat was improving, at least for fish and as well as other things. But that was one of the milestones as far as documenting those habitat improvements relating to species.
And one thing I didn't mention to follow on from those changes that Dennis saw is during the period from 1988 when we just saw the greyhawk at the headquarters, we did a couple of different efforts to map raptor nests out at Las Ciénegas, and we started seeing, once the fencing happened, through the next, probably decade, a very large expansion of greyhawk nesting, and then also some other riparian raptors moving in, blackhawks and zone-tail hawks that had not previously been seen there,
Yeah, we've had blackhawks the last couple of years.
which is new.
Yeah, it's a new species for the area.